Greetings, everyone. I'm Mar. Once again, this is my opinion. Now, considering this show revolves around a character that is involved with sports, and in this case, Ray being a sports writer, it's a little odd that sports betting has not really come into play yet, even if it's just in a discussion. We've had episodes discussing betting, season 1, the episode where Ray loses all that money to Frank, but that's more Planet Poker. We haven't had sports betting just yet. Whether it be horse racing, betting on a game, or whatnot. Now, horse racing itself will become a plot element in a Season 9 episode, which will lead to a very poignant moment. But here is the first time we get any indication of sports betting. Now, the reason I say it's interesting is because you would think, considering what Ray does for a living, it would have at least been brought up in passing. But no. But finally we get an episode that deals with it, and that is You Bet. And of course, the fact that it's about betting ties in with Frank, which is the perfect character to tie into it. Because with what happens in the plot of this episode, it is definitely something Frank would do. But considering Ray's morals, it would have to go this way. Now, the plot of the episode is that Frank, for some weird reason, is starting to behave a little different around Ray. He's starting to be, well, sum it up simply, nice. Now, as we've seen, Frank can be loving around his family when he needs to be. I mean, the whole episode in Season 1 involving the ball and other little moments, and we're even going to see moments after this where he is tender and affectionate around his family. It's just because of his generation and how he was raised. He's very selective with it. He's not going to be super lovey-dovey, but when there's a moment where he has to be affectionate, he will be, and of course showing affection in his own way and love. I mean, ping pong is all built around him trying to toughen up both boys by playing ping pong with them. That is life and you gotta be tough. He's his own way. Now, when he starts acting a little different, that is noticeable. Here, like he has a conversation with Ray, about games and all that, and then mentions, like, hey, remember that day we went to the fly balls? We should do that again sometime. And Ray's like, that is a little weird. Brings it up with Deborah. She thinks it's the same way. But she thinks it's weird because maybe he's getting older and he wants to connect with you more. He's thinking about his own mortality. Which, it's a nice little thing to bring up considering what happened to Peter Boyle at the end of the previous season with the heart attack. Which I do have to bring up. His acting is still on point in this episode, but you could tell that his energy levels have gone down a tad. I mean, they picked up from the second to last episode where he has a bit more energy, but you could tell it's not quite the same as it was from seasons 1 to 3. It's gone down. It's not as super noticeable as it is in, say, season 6 and later, to where it's really starting to go down. Like I think I've mentioned the comparison already. It's like George Carlin in his stand-up, where the writing is always on point, but early on he has all that energy, but then for his last 2 stand-up specials, you could tell, like, ooh, what happened to you, George? I mean, your writing's still good, and you can still do some good voice stuff, but your energy levels seem a little different. It's that same thing, but when you have a heart attack and you start to get older, that's bound to happen. But he still has a good amount of energy. And I'll say the noticeable energy levels work well for when Frank is acting a bit differently. And he does bring it up a little bit in the last part of the episode. Now, Ray does spend the first part of the episode trying to figure out, why is he acting differently. And it turns out Frank is doing it just to get information, inside information, since Ray is a sports writer, goes into locker rooms, interviews with him. And he's told by Garvin and Stan, because they've been betting sports, Frank's been on a hot streak because of the information he has gotten from Ray. And the look on Ray's face when he finds this out is like, oh my god. And of course, he goes and wants to confirm this is what it is. We've had enriching conversations. Have they been enriching for you? They sure have. Nice little play on words. So he plants some false information just to 100% confirm that this is where Frank's getting it, involving in an HL game. And then when he finds out that Frank is doing it, I just love that thing. Dad, you're not betting with information I gave you, are you? You set me up. Just the way that those 2 lines go off each other with Ray and Peter playing off each other still gets a good chuckle out of me. You never go against the family. Despite the fact that Frank is doing this mainly to get the information, he is a little honest. I mean, when he said to Ray that he loved Ray's column, he was being genuine. He likes having his conversations, but he likes them in spurts. I mean, when he does try to have the genuine conversation at the end, you could tell it's making him a little uncomfortable. He's like, yeah, we'll do it again later, but we'll play it. And, he would like to actually come out and ask him stuff like, who do you like in the game? But because of Ray's morals and the fact that if he kept doing stuff like that, it would become a little obvious he's feeding his dad information, especially if it's something that he found out in confidence, like the thing about Griffey Jr. working with his dad on his swing. A lot of the athletes would probably stop talking to Ray in confidence, and his boss might be like, Ray, we need you to just stop doing column and interview work and just concentrate on being your head of sports features. That's one thing they never really bring up that much, is the fact he's the head of sports features. The only other work-related stuff they mentioned is him wanting to write the book, which gets rejected, which makes me wonder, I wonder why. And of course, I think he wants to try to become editor a couple different times, which would have been interesting. Of course, we find out that there are people that don't like Ray, which is a subjective thing, but considering how I feel about two specific film critics, I could kind of see why some other people involved with sports might not like Ray, because they might not find him funny or his opinions. But hey, when you're doing a column about game, movie, and all that, it is your opinion. It's just whether people agree with you or not that is the flip. And sorry if there's noise in the back. There's an alarm going off somewhere. Now, there is one little subplot involving Marie involving all this, because everyone notices Frank's behavior. And Marie's assumption about the behavior is the most obvious thing that you can assume the wife would be thinking, and that is that Frank is having an affair. And who does she jump to right away? Harriet Lickman, the often mentioned but only once seen bridge partner of Marie's. I just love that. They know that's a wig she wears. And then when she finds out that you're not having an affair, you're like, oh, you think I'd be happier. And Frank's line, was there an offer? Seems like he's saying that just because he's annoyed the fact that you would assume he's having an affair at his age. But you never know. I mean, the dad character in Moonstruck was having an affair, and he's probably about the same age as Frank. So you never know. You can never be too old or too young to be fooling around like that. Now, one thing I never thought of, because I'm not really the biggest sports guy, is that there's only one little bit of time that this episode could take place during, at least with what's mentioned, and that is early to mid-October, which, funny enough, is when this episode debuted, so topical. And the reason I say that is because that's the only time period, I don't know if now, but mainly when the episode came out, that the NFL, the MLB, and the NHL are all playing at the same time. Like I said, as a sports guy, it's not something that really came to mind, but it's one of those things that's like, wait a minute. Could be a mistake on the writers, but they do line up a little bit, so I guess it is possible. And with some of these episodes that have plots like this, it's kind of hard to tell exactly how long it takes for the episode to go, unless they mention it in dialogue. This one, I'd say it takes place over the course of a week tops, maybe just a couple days, a couple games. So there's that. There is one deleted scene, and it's a segue in between the scene where Ray is talking with Frank, and then he's talking with Deborah. In the final episode, it goes from Ray's reaction to Frank's comment to them talking in bed, and Deborah goes, that is weird. Which I think in the final episode that plays better for pacing and for humor. But in this original one, Ray comes to bed, his feet are cold, he uses Deborah to warm him up, and then she's like, hey, stop that! Doing her humor, like, I'm going to call the cops. By the time they get there, they'll be warm, they'll have no proof. And he's like, what is it? I'm sorry, I was walking downstairs, so my feet were cold, and then he segues into telling the conversation. So if they had kept that scene in, it probably would have gone from there to segue. I did say for pacing and comedy, it works better that it jumps ahead to him telling Deborah already. Because then it's like, oh, he had to tell Deborah that instead of all the other stuff, which is funny, but not necessary for the episode. So this is definitely a deleted scene that, it definitely deserved to be deleted, but it's nice to see so we could see what else was in the script. All in all, this is another fun episode. I don't know off the top of my head if I would put it in the top ones at the end of the day. I'm wondering what I'm looking for. I'm looking for the season 4 case, because I was going to look through all the episodes, but I don't see it on hand, so screw it. It would probably be in the running until I get through all of them. Oh, it's over in the closet. And luckily Frank is not in here, so he's not going to go, "Scared ya, huh?" It'd probably be at least in the consideration, but I don't know if it actually would make it. It's one I definitely never skip. One I saw in syndication. I don't remember when. But it's one never skip. Always fun to watch. And it's another one of the episodes, as I've said a couple times, and there's going to be a couple more times I'll say it as I go through it, that watching it with a slightly older mindset from the last time I marathoned the whole show, definitely appreciate it more. Especially since my grandfather that raised me as a father figure is no longer here. Don't really have a good relationship with my actual father. Just sitting here watching it, I'm like, I feel this episode a bit more. Just like probably some of the Marie-centered ones, once my grandmother's gone, I'll probably feel those ones a bit more. I mean, probably some of them I'll already start feeling a little bit more now with how things are, but once she's gone, I'll probably feel those a bit more. But watching them, it's like, yeah. And then, of course, inside information, it's like, yeah, definitely can't share all that. So that part of it, definitely feel a bit more at my current job. Of course, it'd be a different situation. Instead of giving inside information on sports, it'd be like, I can't share that type of info. Conflict. I cannot give you that info. So that part I get, and I understand Ray's frustration there. Definitely recommend seeing this one if you want to see another good Frank and Ray centered episode with some funny little side twists thing. The acting's pretty good all around, like I said earlier. Nice to see Peter Boyle back there. His injury level's not quite the same, but he has recovered, so nice to see him being able to go throughout a whole episode again. Brad Garrett only has really 2 scenes that he works well in. He's mainly there in the background. But it makes me wonder, like, why would Marie really just want to throw away a piece of fried chicken because Robert bit into it rather than let him eat it? It's like such a waste of food. And it kind of seems at odds with how she is later, but maybe it's her whole thing, like, I made this food for one person, you're not going to get any of it. He's going to set in motion the plot of the next episode, where she's going to be lying about one personal thing to Deborah that's going to spiral and lead to probably one of my favorite Peter Boyle, Frank Barone one-liners that I don't think is in any of the tributes I've made to him.